Shalom. Barakatah Yahweh. Barakatah Yahweh Shai. Call Halayla Yahweh. Bahashem Yahweh Shai. Bahashem Rekakadash. All praises be to the Most High, Yahweh, in the name of His Son, and our Lord and Savior, Yahweh Shai, to the 144,000. Double honor and respect to the apostles and elders of Great Millstone. Coming back at you with another lesson, counting the cost. Counting the cost. So I just want to briefly talk about war. And there's a short video that I want to play. This video was fair use under the Copyright Act of 1976, Section 107. And the brother's page, Arrows of Indignation. I recommend you subscribe to this brother's channel. Constantly putting up videos. So anyway, let's play the video. Fair use.
Can I just stop and ask you a question that I imagine everybody's thinking right now? We were led to believe that the United States has such anti-ballistic defense systems that there's no way the Iranians would be able to hit these bases. But I'm not an expert. From what I can tell, Iran is hitting these bases, aren't they?
Iran is hitting these bases. It's having a lot of bad effect because one...
But why is that? I thought our defenses were the U.S. defenses were so strong.
Because Israel's more important than the American clients in the Persian Gulf.
You're saying that, like, the sophisticated Patriots, for example, are not here, they're there.
There are sophisticated Patriots there, but the majority of the air defense is going to Israel. That's what the client or the owner, whichever you want to, how you want to look at it.
Yeah.
They're the ones getting the most, the master system, the masters. These guys, and this is a shock for these client states because they were led to believe, let the U.S. do whatever, let the U.S. base in your country, you're safe. They're not safe. Qatar found out when Israel struck them,
right
in the middle of their capital city, that they're not safe. But they continued, and now Iran is striking. In fact, we just had a F-18 video was out. F-18 got shot down over Kuwait. It's trying to lift up, and it got shot.
So they're really a legitimate, from a business, I mean, from a military standpoint, this is legitimate defense that they're putting up against the United States.
Oh yeah,
no question.
Absolutely.
Right. This is not like rah-rah stuff because people on either side are going to exaggerate their wins and their losses. You're saying from a military standpoint, they are having real wins in this situation.
And the Central Command, when they said, oh, we've lost, we have 3 killed, 5 wounded, that's a lie. Guarantee you that is a lie. I'm not going to say how many because I don't know. But it's a lot more, I guarantee you, there's a lot more than 3 people killed. If you watch the damage photos coming in, Chinese satellites, other satellites, the damage that they've done. There's even a French base in UAE that's burning right now, a French aviation base. So...
As you're telling me that, I'm thinking to myself, as this thing continues to escalate, for example, let's go to Iraq real quick, because all of a sudden we hear Iraq and Yemen are firing into Israel, which has forced the United States to fire in this whole Iraq situation gets really complicated, doesn't it? Because Iran is now firing at the U.S. military bases in Iraq, right?
Right. The Americans that are in Iraq has been asking them to leave for 10 years. And they've been telling Iraq to go pound sand. We'll do what we want.
Right.
So these bases, there's 2,000 Americans, supposedly there's only 2,000, maybe more, that are now isolated in Iraq. Some in Iraqi Kurdistan, the rest, I guess they could make it up to Turkey. The rest are in central Iraq. The militias, Shia militias, are now firing on them. The Iraqi government wants them out, so doesn't care if there's none of them.
The Shia militia are now firing on the U.S. bases, along with Iran.
And the Iraqi government's now firing on Israel. Iran is helping the Iraqi government against the U.S. bases by shooting on them. Oh yeah, this is complicated. This is a very tight neighborhood, and everything's shooting at everybody else. And the worst part is, by the middle of the first day of conflict, Trump was able to turn this from a war in Iran to a regional war with Iraq and Yemen.
Right.
And yesterday he turned it into a religious war. Congratulations.
So I spoke briefly about this yesterday. Iran has a lot of tactical, operational, and strategic influence in that region. They're training, organizing, and equipping Hezbollah, which is north of Israel. Hezbollah is very modernize in terms of cyber equipment, in terms of drones, in terms of portable missile launch pads, and they can launch a very effective ground attack from the north on Israel. And they got a lot of missile support to do that, to assist them in that endeavor. And they're backed up by Iran in its drone technology. And then you have in Iraq, where Iran controls the Shia militias there in Iraq. And Iraq is predominantly Shia Muslim. So is Iran. Iran is mostly Shia Muslim. So they're controlling the militias there in Iraq. And they can coordinate a very well organized, well equipped, well fitted paramilitary attack on the U.S. bases there in Iraq and virtually overwhelm them. And then they can use supporting fires to subdue or to neutralize the Kurdish or the Kurds in the north of Iraq that has traditionally fought on behalf of and alongside U.S. forces. And then in Yemen, they're supporting the Houthi rebels in the north of Yemen, which are Shia Muslim. You see, so this thing can get ugly real quick. Real quick. And now you have Yemen shooting missiles and rockets over into Israel. And you have you have Yemen also attacking the U.S. forces in and around that area. And then you have Iran shooting rockets and missiles into every major U.S. base in and around the Middle Eastern region. So this thing has spilled over already into a regional conflict. And really, these are the early steps of World War III. And it really doesn't matter how the battle is going conventionally, because all it takes is one nuclear warhead, a major game changer. That's all it takes. So America failed to count the cost in Iran's intricate underground network of which they're able to store large stockpiles of thousands and thousands of missiles and rockets and their cyber drones that they're launching. So what they're doing is they're overwhelming Israel and America's air defense capabilities. Because what you're doing is you're shooting down drones that are just $2,000 a piece on average with $4 million missiles or expensive air defense missiles. So you're exhausting your missile ballistic shield defense systems on cheap drones that are overwhelming your air defense capabilities. So failing to count the cost. Now you have a long drawn out war that you've initiated with no end in sight, no clearly defined objectives, no achievable objectives, no decisive battle plans to end this thing quickly, and no measurable objectives to measure success in every phase 1, 2, 3, whatever, phase 5, 6, 7. So there's no measurable, achievable, decisive objectives to end this thing quickly. So what you wind up with is a long, drawn-out conflict But the major game changers are the nuclear weapons that Iran can bring to bear. And don't forget, Russia is going to be pulled into this thing because they have a military agreement with Iran. So does North Korea and China. And that's going to bring in Turkey's robust Air Force capabilities, along with Iran's cyber capabilities, where they can attack your networks, shut down your networks. They can jam your missile radar detection platforms. So they're able to get through Israel and America's air defense ballistic shields easily. And they're overwhelming these systems with hypersonic and supersonic speed rockets and missiles. So failing to count the cost. Let's go here to Luke 14. I'm trying to keep this quick. Luke 14. Let's go to verse 31. Or what king going to war against another king sitteth not down first and consulteth whether he be able with 10,000 to meet him that cometh against him with 20,000? When you look at Iran's terrain, it is very, their terrain is just unbelievable. They have a vast mountainous region in the west, and then they have a large midsection of nothing but just scorching hot desert. So it would be suicide to launch a ground campaign in Iran. And it could shut down the Strait of Hormuz. So now they're crippling your oil production capability by shutting that down. And don't forget, it's the Bab al-Mandab Strait south of Yemen. They can shut that down because Yemen is a proxy extension of the Iranians. So about 30% of the world's oil transportation is being shut down. But they're allowing China to go through and targeting the other nations outside of their alliance. So the terrain favors Iran with its vast mountainous region and its underground network, where they're able to stockpile thousands of missiles and drones and overwhelm the U.S. and Israeli defense systems. So this is just total epic failure all around. Luke 14 and 31. Or what king going to make war against another king sitteth not down first and counteth the cost? So look, I'm getting excited. I start up at verse 28. For which of you, intending to build a tower, sitteth not down first and counteth the cost, whether he have sufficient to finish it? So any endeavor that we set out to build, there's an old saying that I heard a 2-star general say: never rush to failure. Never rush to failure. Can we sustain this effort? They're not even looking at sustainable operations in that region. Running out of missiles, running out of ballistic defense capabilities, running out of munitions. So this is just a very hastily executed act without much foresight or planning or counsel. Less happily, after he have laid the foundation and is not able to finish it, all that behold it begin to mock him. You had Donald Trump asking for a ceasefire, having what's called an OSM, an old shit moment. You done stirred up the hornet's nest, and you're not adequately prepared to defend the robust cyber and missile capability and strike capabilities of Iran. So America has been caught sleeping. Iran is not Iraq. Big difference. Matter of fact, the landmass of Iran is almost the size of Alaska. That's a vast territory of mountainous regions and a lot of vast desert. Virtually impossible to launch a successful ground campaign. Less happily, after he have laid the foundation and is not able to finish it, all that behold it begin to mock him. So that's happening now. You mean to tell me these missiles can get through? So there was no concrete military plan that was built, ready to execute. Saying this man began to build and was not able to finish. Let's have a ceasefire now. We're getting pounded. U.S. bases coming under attack underneath the Iranian missile umbrella. Or what king going to make war against another king sitteth not down first, and consulteth whether he be able with 10,000 to meet him that cometh against him with 20,000. So Iran can bring a lot of modern bells and whistles to bear, a lot of modern military firepower to bear. And they've had 20 years to build a very intricate underground network where they're able to continue their missile resupply to launch sustained attacks on every major U.S. base in the region. See? Or what king going to make war against another king sitteth not down first, and consulteth whether he be able with 10,000 to meet him that cometh against him with 20,000. See? So this takes a lot of counsel, wargaming, war planning. So Iran, knowing that they're surrounded on every side by U.S. military bases, they've capitalized off this past 20 years. And they evaluated and gained lessons learned from the invasion of Iraq. So 20 years of preparation. And they studied the U.S. involvement in Afghanistan, where the U.S. had to pull out about 3 years ago, left with their tail between their legs. See? Planning or failing to plan, or then you plan to fail, in other words. And you cannot accurately assess and attack Iran's intricate underground city networks. You just can't do it. Let's go here. Not to mention a country that's about 4% smaller than the state of Alaska. That's a vast territory to try to conquer. So the terrain overwhelmingly favors Iran. The terrain favors the enemy, Iran. Proverbs 20, verse 18. See, right here. Every purpose is established by counsel, and with good advice make war. See? So the generals should have done a very thorough terrain analysis and military capabilities assessment of Iran, their underground networks, their resupply caches in the mountain regions, their air defense capabilities, their satellite capabilities. Iran has a very robust satellite communications network and cyber attack and defense capability. See, all of these things. They have thousands of drones to launch towards your defense bases. So now you're wasting and exhausting $4 million air defense missiles to shoot down some damn paper kites, cheap drones. So you cannot sustain that. So are your military objectives achievable, decisive, measurable, and are they realistic? And are they sustainable? Do you have enough beans and bullets and troops or personnel to sustain a successful military campaign? If not, don't even bother. Proverbs 20, verse 18. Every purpose is established by counsel, and with good advice make war. So America's fallen short on the effects of having poor military counsel, rushing to failure. Let's get this in the NLT. Plans succeed through good counsel. Don't go to war without wise advice. So you need think tanks. You need terrain analysis. You need cyber capability data collection. You need to understand their targeting capabilities, their jamming capabilities of your detection platforms. How many rockets and missiles do they have? How are they resupplying their rockets and their missiles? You see? And then in the mountainous region, they're able to hide thousands of air defense or offensive strategic launch platforms that you cannot find easily. And their satellite or their radar capabilities, or you can't even get into their airspace without being shot down. But ultimately, Iran has had 20 years plus, at least 20 years, to fortify their defenses and their offensive strike capabilities and strengthen their cyber attack platforms. Hopefully this lesson has been edifying. See you on the next lesson, Lord willing. Kwam Yasharala and Abad Babal. We got next, Lord willing. Barakathum. Shalom. Shalom. Shalom.